3:38 a.m. The Persian Gulf, 51 nautical miles northeast of Bahrain, 67 nautical miles southwest of the Iranian coast at Bandar Lenge. The Persian Gulf at this latitude is 190 meters deep, at its deepest point, a shallow inland sea by any oceanic standard, its water warm and saline, its surface on this morning running a half-meter ripple from the northwest under a sky that is fully overcast at 3,000 feet. No stars, no moon, the darkness complete except for the navigation lights of the formation below and the distant glow of the gas platforms on the Iranian side of the median line, 14 miles to the north. Temperature 31 degrees Celsius. Humid. Windless. The USS Makin Island, LHD-8, a Wasp-class amphibious assault ship, the lead ship of the improved LHD-8 flight variant, holds station at 8 knots on a northeasterly heading within the designated operating area for Exercise Eager Lion, the annual multinational amphibious exercise that has brought a combined U.S. Gulf Cooperation Council naval force into the Persian Gulf for the 8th consecutive year. She is 44,000 tons of amphibious capability, 22 AV-8B Harrier II attack aircraft and 6 AH-1Z Viper attack helicopters on her flight deck, 12 CH-53E Super Stallion, and 12 MV-22B Osprey in her hangar, and in her well deck and troop spaces, 1,800 Marines of the 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit, configured for a combined amphibious assault exercise that will begin at first light in 4 hours, with a notional beach landing on the Bahraini coast to the southwest. She is not a carrier strike group. She is an amphibious ready group, a different mission profile, a different defensive architecture, a different calculus of vulnerability. Around her, the guided missile destroyer USS Sterett, DDG-104, Arleigh Burke, Flight 2A, Aegis Baseline 9.C1, 1 mile ahead on the axis of advance, her AN/SPY-1D in active search. The dock landing ship USS Rushmore, LSD-47, 3 miles astern, carrying 6 additional LCAC landing craft and vehicle storage for the 11th MEU's equipment. And flanking the formation on the eastern exposed bearing, the bearing toward the Iranian coast, the guided missile frigate USS Constellation, FFG-62, the first of the new Oliver Hazard Perry replacement class, her AN/SPS-49 V1 surface search radar rotating on its pedestal above the bridge. 3 ships. The Makin Island's own defensive systems. 2 Ram Block 2 launchers, 2 Phalanx Block 1 BCI-WS mounts, and a single-arm launcher with 16 evolved Sea Sparrow missiles. A close and medium-range defensive suite, appropriate to an amphibious ship operating inside a carrier strike group's defensive perimeter, not to a ship operating as the primary asset in a standalone formation inside the Persian Gulf. The Persian Gulf is the IRGCN's home water. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy's 2nd Naval District at Bandar Abbas knows every ship that transits the Gulf, its heading, its speed, its position within 30 minutes of entering the Strait of Hormuz. The Makin Island had been tracked since she entered the Gulf 12 days earlier. Her operating pattern, her night anchorage positions, her exercise schedule, all logged by IRGCN coastal surveillance elements, by intelligence vessels operating under fishing boat cover on the Iranian side of the median line, by the IRGCN's high-frequency radar network that mapped every surface contact in the Gulf continuously. By the time the IRGCN's 2nd Naval District operations staff finished their final planning review 3 days before this engagement, they knew the Makin Island's position to within 400 meters and her likely position at 3:38 a.m. to within 2 nautical miles. The IRGCN had identified the Makin Island's amphibious ready group as a different order of defensive challenge than a carrier strike group. No E-2D airborne radar, no cruiser with a full SPY-1A magazine of SM-2 and SM-6, no CEC network with 4 ships contributing their magazines to a unified engagement queue. An amphibious ready group in the Persian Gulf at night, conducting an exercise, was a formation whose defensive depth was measured in nautical miles rather than hundreds of miles. A formation where a fast, coordinated attack from short range could compress the defensive engagement timeline to a window that challenged even a competent close-in defense. The strike package was designed specifically for this geometry. 16 Noor anti-ship cruise missiles, the Iranian C-802 variant, active radar homing, sea-skimming terminal approach, 165-kilogram warhead, range 170 kilometers, launched from 4 mobile launcher vehicles positioned on the Iranian coast at Bandar Lenga and at the concealed coastal road network south of Kish Island. 4 launchers, 4 Noor missiles each, 16 missiles total, programmed in 2 groups, 8 on the Makin Island herself, targeting her flat deck, island structure, and amidships fuel storage, and 8 distributed across the Starret and the Constellation, 2 per escort. The 16 missiles were timed for near-simultaneous arrival across a 40-second window. The approach geometry, from the northeast over a 67-mile water crossing at 50 meters altitude, gave the missiles a transit time of approximately 22 minutes from launch to the formation's radar horizon. Inside the formation's 25-mile radar horizon, the Noor's sea-skimming terminal profile would give the defending ships less than 4 minutes of engagement time before the missiles reached hull impact distance. Supporting the missile strike, operating from 4 IRGCN patrol boat stations along the Iranian coast south of Kish Island, 18 Blade Runner 51 fast attack craft, fiberglass hold, 50 knots maximum speed, armed with 2 DST-1 rocket launchers and a forward-mounted 23mm ZU-23 autocannon. The 18 fast boats had departed their staging positions at 3:12 a.m., running south at 40 knots on a direct interception course toward the formation's eastern flank. At 40 knots, they would reach the Constellation's current position at approximately 3:54 a.m., 16 minutes after the Noor missile's projected impact time. The fast boat's role was exploitation, to reach the formation in the aftermath of the Noor missile strike, when the IRGCN planners expected the ships to be managing damage and casualties and to close to rocket and cannon range before a recovering defense could reorient against a surface threat. They made 6 catastrophic mistakes. The first mistake, the USS Constellation's AN/S PS-49V-1. The newest ship in the formation was also the most underestimated by IRGCN planners, who had built their model of the amphibious ready group's defensive capability around the Makin Island's own close-range defensive suite. The Constellation was not merely an armed frigate for show. Her AN/S PS-49V-1 long-range air search radar, her AN/S PY-6V3 small baseline radar suite, and her 32 VLS cells loaded with 16 SM-2, Block 3B and 16 ESSM, Block 2, made her a capable point defense ship. Not a full Aegis cruiser, but significantly more capable than the IRGCN's targeting model had credited. More critically, the Constellation was positioned on the eastern flank, precisely the bearing from which both the Noor missiles and the fast boats were approaching. She was in the optimal geometric position to be the first defensive layer against exactly the threats being launched. The second mistake, the P-8A coverage. The Persian Gulf's confined geography, 250 miles wide at its widest, 60 miles wide at the Hormuz approach, meant that a P-8A Poseidon operating from its standard Gulf patrol orbit at 8,000 feet over the central Gulf had line-of-sight coverage of the entire Iranian coastal road network south of Bandar Abbas. The P-8A from Patrol Squadron 5 at NSA Bahrain had been on its standard Gulf surveillance orbit since 11 p.m. Its AN/APY-10 in inverse synthetic aperture radar mode had imaged the 4 IRGCN launcher vehicles at their coastal positions at 2:47 a.m., identifying them as wheeled launch vehicles in pre-launch erection configuration from the characteristic mast and launcher profile in the ISAR return. The P-8A crew transmitted a launch imminent report at 2:51 a.m., 47 minutes before the first Noor launched. The Makin Island ARG received the warning at 2:54 a.m. The formation was at full defensive readiness, the Constellation's radar and fire control search mode, the Makin Island's ram launchers manned and enabled, the Starrett's VLS in standby, all of this before the first Noor's engine ignited. The third mistake, the fast boat acoustic signature. The 18 Blade Runner 51 fast attack craft, running at 40 knots with their high-performance diesel and petrol engines at full throttle, produced a combined surface radar and acoustic signature that the P-8A's AN/APY-10 maritime surface search mode detected at 22 nautical miles from their departure positions at 3:14 a.m., 2 minutes after they left their staging points. The P-8A tracked all 18 boats from their departure through their southward run, updating the formation with speed, heading, and count every 4 minutes. By the time the Noor missiles launched at 3:38 a.m., the formation knew exactly where all 18 fast attack craft were, their speed and bearing, and their projected time on target against the Constellation. 3:54 a.m. The boat's exploitation role, arriving in the aftermath of the missile strike when the defense was occupied with damage control, was scheduled against a timeline that had been known and prepared for by the entire formation for 44 minutes before the first Noor flew. The fourth mistake, the Noor approach corridor geometry. The 67-mile water crossing from the Iranian coast to the Makin Island ARG's position was the shortest engagement range from which a Noor missile could be launched while still providing the 22-minute transit time the IRGCN's attack plan required for its timing sequence. At 67 miles, the Noor's sea-skimming approach profile, 50 meters altitude across the flat Persian Gulf surface, was inside the detection range of the USS Constellation's AN/SPY-6V3. At the moment, the missiles crossed 20 nautical miles. 20 nautical miles against a sea-skimming cruise missile at Mach 0.9 gave the Constellation 4 minutes and 22 seconds of engagement time before impact. Enough for 2 SM-2 salvos and an ESSM backup layer. The tight geometry that the IRGCN planners had assessed as compressing the defensive timeline had, from the Constellation's position on the threat bearing, created a geometry where every Noor missile passed through her engagement envelope at close range before reaching the Makin Island's defensive layers. The fifth mistake, the Makin Island's AV-8B Harrier complement. The IRGCN's defensive assessment of the Makin Island ARG had not incorporated the offensive potential of the Harriers embarked for the amphibious exercise. aircraft that were armed with AGM-65 Maverick air-to-surface missiles for the exercise's close air support phase, and were on 30-minute alert status on the flight deck. The Harrier is not an air defense platform. Against fast attack craft at short range on a flat sea surface, however, the AV-8B, carrying 4 AGM-65 Mavericks each, is a highly effective anti-surface weapon. When the P-8A's track data on the 18 fast boats was transmitted to the Makin Island at 3:14 a.m., the air officer immediately began configuring 2 alert Harrier sections for anti-surface strike, 16 minutes before the Noor missiles launched. By 3:38 a.m., 4 AV-8B aircraft were at 5-minute alert status with engines running, already assigned target sectors among the 18 Blade Runner fast attack craft. The sixth mistake was the confidence that a formation operating inside a constrained, shallow water theater without the overhead surveillance architecture of a carrier strike group was operating blind. It was not. The P-8A was its eye, the Constellation was its sword on the threat bearing, and the Makin Island's own Harrier complement was an offensive anti-surface asset that the IRGCN had not modeled as part of the formation's response capability. The IRGCN planners had correctly identified that the Makin Island ARG was a less defended formation than a carrier strike group. They had not correctly characterized what less defended meant in absolute terms against a known, tracked, and 35-minute warned attack in a theater under continuous P-8A surveillance. At 3:38 a.m. and 9 seconds after the first Noor ignited its rocket booster at the Bandar Lenge coastal site, the P-8A crew transmits launch confirmation. All stations Poseidon. Noor launch confirmed, bearing 047, count 16, 2 launch sites. Time to radar horizon, approximately 21 minutes. Tracks transmitted. The USS Constellation's commanding officer authorizes weapons free at 3:38 a.m. and 17 seconds. All ships Constellation. Weapons free, all Noor tracks. I have the northeast sector. Starrett, cover northwest backup. Makin Island, RAM and CIWS in auto. Stand by for fast boat prosecution order at 0354. The Constellation acquires the 16 Noor missiles on her AN/SPY-6V3 at 23 nautical miles at 3:55 a.m., 17 seconds ahead of the computed radar horizon crossing, as the missiles emerge from behind the geometric horizon at 50 meters altitude. She fires immediately. 16 SM-2, Block 3B missiles from her VLS cells in a 21-second ripple, 2 per Noor track on the 8 missiles assigned to the Makin Island, 1 per track with ESSM backup on the 8 missiles assigned to the Starrett and Constellation herself. The SM-2's infrared terminal seeker acquires each Noor's turbojet exhaust against the flat Gulf surface. The Gulf is calm on this night, sea state 1, and the infrared contrast between the Noor's turbojet plume and the dark water surface is near ideal. 11 intercepts on the first Constellation SM-2 salvo. Missiles 2, 7, 9, and 13 survive. 2 on the Makin Island bearing, 1 on the Starrett bearing, 1 whose acquisition sequence was briefly delayed by a Noor that flew through the exhaust trail of a previously intercepted missile, confusing its seeker for 4 seconds before it reacquired. 4 Noor survivors. Constellation fires 8 ESSM, Block 2 from her forward VLS cells, 2 per surviving track at ranges between 11 and 14 nautical miles. 3 intercepts. 1 Noor, The track whose seeker confusion episode had delayed the first intercept attempt continues inbound on the Sterett Barren at 11 nautical miles, Mach 0.9, sea skimming at 45 meters. The USS Sterett fires 2 SM-2, Block 3B from her VLS cells against this surviving Noor at 3:57 a.m. First SM-2. Intercept at 7.4 nautical miles from the Sterett, the infrared seeker guiding cleanly to the Noor's exhaust signature. The Noor's warhead section is destroyed by the continuous rod fragmentation. The casing falls into the Gulf of Oman at 7 nautical miles from any ship. No detonation. 16 Noor anti-ship cruise missiles. 11 intercepted by Constellation SM-2, Block 3B. 3 intercepted by Constellation ESSM, Block 2. 1 intercepted by Sterett SM-2, Block 3B. 0 Noor warheads reached any ship's hull. 0 warhead detonations. 0 structural damage. 3:57 a.m. The Makin Island's commanding officer keys the tactical net. All stations, Makin Island. Noor threat neutralized. Execute fastboat Gulf. Harrier sections cleared to engage. The fastboat prosecution runs simultaneously. 4 AV-8B Harrier 2 aircraft launch from the Makin Island's deck at 3:47 a.m., 7 minutes before the Noor intercept sequence completes, their engines already running since 3:41 a.m. Each Harrier carries 4 AGM-65 laser-guided Maverick missiles, 16 Mavericks total. The P-8A's continuous track on the 18 Blade Runner 51 fast attack craft, updated 6 minutes earlier at 3:41 a.m. with current positions at 9 nautical miles northeast of the Constellation, is transmitted to the Harrier Lead's targeting display via the formation's Link 16 tactical data link. The 4 Harriers climbed to 3,000 feet and split into 2 sections. One section taking the northern cluster of 11 fast boats, one section taking the 7 southern cluster boats. The AV-8B's AGM-65 Maverick seeker locks on each boat's radar return and propulsion heat signature against the dark Gulf surface. The Blade Runner 51 fast attack craft at 40 knots are generating bow waves and propulsion signatures that are unmistakable to the Maverick seeker at their 3,000-foot acquisition altitude. First Maverick impacts at 3:51 a.m. Methodical. 2 Mavericks per boat for the largest boats in the northern cluster, 1 per boat for the smaller targets in the southern cluster. 12 fast attack craft mission neutralized by Maverick strikes between 3:51 a.m. and 3:59 a.m. 6 remaining fast boats, the 3 fastest Blade Runner 51s in the northern cluster that had not been in the initial Maverick priority sequence, and 3 southern cluster boats that executed emergency turns and reduced their radar signature by dropping to 20 knots. Close to within 6 nautical miles of the Constellation on her eastern flank before their bearing places them inside the Constellation's Mark 38 Mod 2 25mm chain gun engagement envelope. The Constellation opens fire with her Mark 38 Mod 2 at 3:59 a.m. 4-second bursts at maximum tracking rate against the 3 northern cluster survivors at 4.2 to 5.1 nautical miles. 2 boats disabled in the first 3 firing sequences. Propulsion loss and structural breach confirmed by subsequent P-8A FLIR assessment. 1 boat continues closing at 30 knots, its crew apparently maintaining propulsion despite the 25mm hits. The Constellation fires her forward Phalanx Block 1B in surface threat mode at 3.4 nautical miles. The Phalanx's surface engagement mode using its own radar and track while scan configuration against the approaching boat. 2-second burst. The Blade Runner's hull is penetrated at 2.8 nautical miles, and it loses all propulsion 3 minutes later. The 3 Southern Cluster survivors approach the Sterret's western flank. The Sterret engages with her own Mark 38, Mod 2, and 2 Hellfire missiles from her embarked SH-60B Seahawk helicopter. The helicopter that had been airborne on standard surface search since 2:30 a.m. and that immediately retasked to anti-surface prosecution on the commanding officer's order at 3:38 a.m. 2 boats disabled by Hellfire at 5 nautical miles. 1 boat disabled by Mark 38 25mm fire at 3.6 nautical miles. 4:04 a.m. 26 minutes since the first Noor launched from the Iranian coast. 16 Noor cruise missiles, all intercepted by SM-2, Block 3B, and ESSM, Block 2, before reaching any hull. 18 IRGCN Blade Runner. 51 fast attack craft. 12 disabled by AV-8B Harrier Maverick strikes. 2 disabled by Constellation 25mm chain gun. 1 stopped by Constellation Phalanx in surface mode, 3 disabled by Sterret Hellfire and 25mm chain gun. All 18 fast boats mission neutralized before any reached effective rocket or cannon range against any ship. 0 Noor warhead detonations. 0 fast boat rocket or cannon rounds fired at any formation ship. 0 structural damage to USS Makin Island, USS Sterret, or USS Rushmore. 0 American personnel casualties. 0 Marine casualties. The Makin Island's commanding officer transmits his post-engagement report to 5th Fleet and to Commander Naval Forces Central Command at 4:06 a.m. Navcent, Makin Island. All threat tracks neutralized. 16 Noor, all intercepted. 18 fast attack craft, all mission neutralized. 0 hull contact across formation. 0 casualties. All ships fully operational. Requesting authorization for Anvil Gulf II response package. Time-sensitive targets and window. Authorization from Navcent arrives at 4:08 a.m. At 4:09 a.m., the USS Sterret opens 8 VLS cells. 8 Tomahawk block. 5 cruise missiles climb from her forward deck in a 10-second ripple heading northeast toward the Iranian coast. USS Constellation fires 6 Tomahawks 19 seconds later. 14 Tomahawk block 5 missiles. 3 target complexes. Target Complex 1. The 4 Noor missile launcher vehicles at Bandar Lenge and the Kish Island coastal road sites. The P-8A's ISAR radar had tracked all 4 launcher vehicles from their pre-launch positions through their post-launch dispersal routes. The vehicles had moved northeast along the coastal road network immediately after launch, 2 heading toward Bandar Lenge's port area, and 2 turning inland toward a prepared dispersal position in the hills north of the coastal highway. The launcher vehicles' routes had been logged continuously for 26 minutes. 6 Tomahawks, 1 per highest confidence vehicle position, plus the Bandar Lenge launcher preparation facility, whose radar signature, the P-8A, had imaged at 2:47 a.m. Target Complex 2. The IRGCN 2nd Naval District Forward Coordination Center at Kish Island. The node identified by the RC-135V/W's signals collection as the tactical coordination point for tonight's combined Noor and fast boat attack, whose high-frequency communications traffic had been elevated since 3 a.m. and dropped to silence at 3:36 a.m. consistent with a pre-attack emissions lockout. A hardened coastal facility. 4 Tomahawks. The communications arrays take the first 2 warheads. The main building takes 2 Block 5 penetrating warheads in sequence. Target Complex 3. The 4 IRGCN fast boat staging positions on the Iranian coast south of Kish Island. The concealed shelter positions from which the 18 Blade Runner 51 fast attack craft had departed at 3:12 a.m. The P-8A's imagery at 2:47 a.m. had shown all 4 staging positions occupied by clusters of 4 to 6 fast attack craft each. The boats that had been launched tonight and potentially additional craft still in their shelters. 4 Tomahawks, 1 per staging position. Secondary detonations at 2 positions confirm boat fuel storage at the shelter sites. At 4:14 a.m., 2 of the 4 AV-8B Harriers that prosecuted the fast boat attack, now recovered and rearmed with AGM-68 anti-radiation missiles, launch from the Makin Island's deck and fly northeast toward the IRGCN coastal radar network on Kish Island and the Bandar Lenge coast. 4 AGM-68 HARM missiles against 2 radar sites, both silenced by 4:31 a.m. By 4:37 a.m., 59 minutes after the first Noor launched, the Anvil Gulf II counterstrike is complete. Battle damage assessment. NavCent intelligence at 7 a.m. 4 Noor launcher vehicles. 2 struck at coastal road dispersal positions. 2 assessed at Bandar Lenge staging facility destroyed. IRGCN Kish Island Coordination Center. Communications destroyed. Main building severely damaged. 4 fast boat staging positions, all struck, 2 with secondary detonations confirming fuel storage. 2 IRGCN Kish Island and Bandar Lenge radar sites, both silenced. 18 Blade Runner 51 fast attack craft, all mission neutralized in the Gulf by Harrier Maverick, ship chain gun, phalanx surface mode, and Seahawk Hellfire engagement. Assessed IRGCN personnel, casualties 31 to 49. American losses 0. 0 personnel casualties across the formation. At 4:41 a.m., the Makin Island ARG transitions from general quarters to heightened alert. The flight deck is respotted for the 6 a.m. exercise resumption brief, the Harriers returning to their alert positions. The landing craft begin their vehicle loading sequences in the well deck for the 0700 exercise landing. The MV-22B Ospreys cycle through their pre-flight checks. The 11th MEU, who has spent the last 53 minutes at their battle stations in the troop spaces below the waterline, begins its stand down to heightened alert. The Persian Gulf exercise will proceed on schedule. The beach landing is 4 hours away. The Marines will conduct their assault on the beach to the southwest this morning, because the ships that carry them performed exactly as designed against a threat the IRGCN had spent months planning. The Makin Island holds 8 knots northeast. The Persian Gulf is quiet. The exercise begins at dawn.